Welcome to the Babies Podcast. I'm Lewis Stardust.
I'm Tori the Beth.
Today we're joined here by Dylan and Cam of Play to Win.
Hello.
So we're going to talk to them all about their journey through playing Magic, CEDH, and all that good stuff. But first, a word from our sponsors.
That's right. TCG Player is your one-stop shop for all things TCGs. Whether you play Magic, Lorcana, Flesh and Blood, One Piece, whatever it is, you can get it there. From pre-cons to singles to play boosters, whatever you want.
We have the all-new Duskmorn, which is out, so you can get that over on TCG Player. You can also go pick up Foundations. I think those are the last two sets coming out this year, but there has been so much Magic. So if you've missed anything coming out this year, was Fallout this year?
Fallout was this year.
We had Fallout this year. Ravnica Remastered came out this year, if you remember. Oko was here, and OTJ this year. There's so many sets. So if you want to pick up any of those singles, pre-cons like Tori mentioned, lots of new products, old products, all that good stuff. Check it out on TCG Player.
That's right. We also have the Haunted Bundle from Duskmorn. It looks like a little TV. It's very spooky, very cool. Contains some brand new things that we're going to talk about in the Duskmorn episode.
If you want to pick up any of the cool stuff we talk about in today's podcast, you can do so by checking out TCG Player. Thank you to TCG Player for sponsoring this episode.
We love you.
Cool. So we're going to let you just introduce yourselves. Obviously, if people are here, I'm going to assume they know who you are because you guys are amazing content creators focusing on CEDH content, but you've also been on our channel a bunch, and people always love you and want you to come back. You're probably our most requested duo to come back, or just players in general. So yeah, take it away, introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about what Play to Win is.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm Dylan. This is Cam.
Hello, I'm Cam.
We make CEDH content, mainly YouTube videos. We do some podcasts, gameplays. We do shorts that are mainly clipped up versions of our gameplay and podcasts. But yeah, that's what we do. I mean, CEDH content, the highest power level of Commander.
He said it best. Yeah.
So how did the two of you start playing, I guess, Magic in general and then evolve into Play to Win today?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Ooh, yeah.
We met through our girlfriends.
Yeah.
We were dating, and my girlfriend Rachel said her friend Courtney had a friend who was a nerd and played Magic, and maybe I would like him. We hung out at a party, and we kind of like sussed each other out to see like what type of Magic player we are.
Yeah.
So we were like making sure that you know the same words that I know, and we know about tournament. We ran in similar circles for a long time, but didn't actually ever cross paths for some reason.
It was a weird Venn diagram that we were living in. It just never made it to that middle part.
Like we went to the same high school, except I'm a couple of years older, so we never crossed paths in high school. We went to the same local game store, but for some reason, like when I stopped playing Modern and started playing Standard, I don't know, it just like didn't overlap.
It just never sunk up. Yeah.
But we were both Jund guy when we played Eternal formats. We both played Jund a lot, so we had like similar play styles.
Funnily enough, we also started around the same time. I started like right after Innistrad came out. You started
same
like
thing. I started in like Avacyn Restored.
Yeah, so like
the same block.
roughly around the same time. Yeah, so
That's so funny because like ironically, like me and Tori grew up in the same area. We just never like crossed paths. Like her dad is from the town I grew up in, right? So there's been like this overlap. And then also too, me, you, and Tori have had the same kind of music scene.
Yeah.
So and a lot of mutual friends, and we've just never come across each other. But I'm sure that we probably did at one
Yeah,
point.
we're probably in the same venue or something, just like 100 people apart.
It's
right?
this really cool thing where it's like not like red string theory, but just like it's crazy to think about that we would wind up here, and we've probably crossed paths before. We just never met. So I think it's really cool that your girlfriends introduced each other, which is really cool. And what were you like mostly playing at that time? You said Eternal formats. Did you have like a favorite thing at that time?
Modern for sure. Yeah, I was playing Modern pretty steadily up until like the pandemic. And
this was like 2019 when we met, by the way, which is kind of relevant because at the time I was playing CEDH a little bit, trying to, but you really hadn't yet.
I was barely into Commander even. Like I had played in other playgroups, but the casual mindset of Commander, I could not wrap my 60 card format brain around. Like, why are you screwing me over? I'm not doing anything. Like it was just something I couldn't get. So I stayed away and I just stayed on Modern for the longest time.
Yeah, and then I was trying to make YouTube videos. I had made other content before that nothing ever happened with, and I was seeing a lot of CEDH channels pop up at the time. Like I was watching Spike Feeders a lot, and I was watching
CEDH TV.
CEDH TV. Who was the other one?
Casually Competitive.
Casually Competitive was the one that I was finally like, okay, there's enough people now that if they're doing this, I think I can do the same thing. I was in video production, so I already knew how to work a camera and keep a schedule and do certain things like that, so it kind of felt like an easy step. And when I met Cameron, he was just like, can I curse?
Yeah.
He was just like loud as fuck. I was like, this dude is like a perfect host for, like, this is a perfect side dude for me because you were like loud and you can talk super well. I'm like, this is gonna work out. Yeah.
You guys just balance each other super well. And something I wanted to touch on real quick. You said 2019.
Yeah.
So it's been like 5 years.
Yeah. We started. The first Play to Win video I think came out in like January of 2020.
Yeah, it was like right before
the pandemic.
You know, it was the same day as that CEDH tournament.
The first one that Tatiova won. There was like to me, it felt like the original CEDH tournament. There was probably other ones, but it was like a huge one that Tatiova won, and that we posted on the same day.
I feel like during lockdown, because I wasn't playing CEDH at that time, I started learning Magic in 2020. But I feel like from what I've heard, lockdown was like so much CEDH stuff started happening around that time.
Yeah. Not only was the CEDH community already primarily in the online space, but then it kind of like forced the already, commander groups to go more online too. So it really grew websites like Spell Table and all these other resources that were just kind of like, oh yeah, these guys have been around for a long time now. But that's really when a lot of this had started to boom, and CEDH got a huge boon from that then too.
Yeah, I think everyone was just like cooped up at home, and CEDH was like a great spot to land on. I think before there were still a ton of like negative feelings that people had about CEDH, being that it was kind of pub stompy. But then when you could like get out of people who, I don't know, once you could get out of that space, like into your own home and just like watching the YouTube videos, it felt much more easy, I think, for a lot of people to get into CEDH. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think, I also think that's something your channel does really well. Like, you can go to your channel and find a lot of beginner-friendly channels, like concepts. We talked about how you do separate tabs and playlists so people can find, like, that commander and what that commander is doing. But I also think you make it a very approachable game. And I think you make it a really positive space. And I think it's, like, you're just like a household name for CEDH, right? When people think of CEDH, like, yeah, it's crazy. But I posted something last week where I was talking about like this is what CEDH is. It's our friends being silly. Yeah. It's all these wonderful moments. And I think that you guys are such big ambassadors for the format. But I really love how you're exactly who you are on camera as you are in person. Like, you guys are so goofy and so friendly. And I think, like, when I see fans meeting you too, they're like the happiest, like, just to see that you're literally the same way too. So it's not really a question, it's just more of like an adornment. Like, we obviously followed you for a while before we started playing CEDH. For me, you were a big reason that we do play CEDH. So I think it's just really cool to see, like, the past 3 years that I've been watching you, the progression of how stuff has been going, and also for the community, I'm sure it's been really nice.
I appreciate that. I mean, that's a huge goal for us. We talk about that a lot. Like, community is like one of our big focuses for Play to Win. So like spending a lot of time on the Discord and talking with as many people as possible, like making people feel that they're at our table with us is like a huge goal for us. That's what I want the content to feel like. So I appreciate you saying that, because that's like a big goal.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys do a lot of community stuff. We've done some of the MagicCon stuff, the Learn to Play Together. You obviously, like, you guys, when you're at an event, you're from like the ass crack of dawn, like whatever time you get there to the end of the day, you're just jamming CEDH.
We're
like,
determined to play as much as possible.
What's the most you've done in a weekend? Because you definitely told me numbers.
30? Right?
Yeah, we got 30 games in one weekend.
I think we went like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We were able to get like 10 games a day, or maybe it was like 11 and 9 or something like that. But I think we hit 30 one time. Like that was a lot. That was kind
of
my
brain
excessive.
was fried.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything for the rest of that week. Yeah.
I was gonna say from like 1 or 2 we're like smoked. We're like, all right, I need a little nap.
Every time I like go to an event too, I always loved this. I saw that you had like a sign-up sheet, so that way when people came over, if you were in the middle of a game, you were able to write their name down. That way, you're next on the list. You get to rotate in when this person's out, and then, we get 2 more people in. And I love that because it just kind of shows a level of caring that everybody gets their time.
Yeah.
And whoever wants to play with you, like, I'm sure you can't get everybody in a day, but you're going to try. And you're going to try to, tell people, hey, played a game. It was great. I'm going to play with these guys now. I really want to spend time with everyone.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. There's always people waiting to hang out with you guys.
It's hard to do in Commander too.
Yeah.
Lucky CEDH is sometimes faster.
Yeah, I know. We kind of had to tell people, like, you sort of have to be in earshot with that, because we do try to do the list. But when we've had it before, we're like, put down your number and we'll like text you or hit you up on Discord or something. But then a lot of times with the conventions, people go to like the other side of the convention.
I'm at Chipotle.
Yeah, and it takes them 15 minutes to get by. So we kind of need like whoever's there to be like on the list. But the list does make it helpful to kind of get through as many people as possible, and just so we can see as many people, because that's how we get a lot of feedback too. Like, that's a big way that Kim and I get like kind of like a read directly on the format. Like, you can play a ton of formats, a ton of like tournaments and stuff like that, but getting like it's much different at a convention when anyone who's not looking to compete at a tournament but is just like trying to play CDH, getting like their vibes from CDH. It's a much different type of player, I feel.
Especially because they're not trying to adhere to a tournament CEDH meta, so they're more comfortable bringing out like the fun, spicy stuff that they want to show the guys who play to win, and maybe we'll talk about it on the channel then too, right? So, so it's really cool getting to play with people like that.
Touching on it too, you guys play a lot of like community built decks or like player built decks and stuff, which is really cool because it's not just like the same 6 decks. So what has been like your favorite unique brew that you've had this past year, or
that's a great
yeah, like a cool, fun
Cody,
brew?
I'm so sorry to
No,
cut
you're
you
good.
off.
Yeah, you're good.
But the first one that comes to mind is Cody. We had a patron submit
Cody.
Cool list, and I built it myself. I love the list so much. I built it. So that was the first one that comes to mind. Like, because I just feel Cody is so cool. I've taken Cody apart at this point, but that's the first one that comes to mind.
It's
Cody.
a weird little guy. Like you see, and you're like, what the does this even do?
Yeah, it's really cool though, because I've gotten to learn a lot of decks that way too. Like one of the coolest ones I've gotten to learn recently was the newer version of Lannis, and like figuring out how the extruder combo works, and it's really allowed me to kind of see decks that I normally wouldn't see. So it's one of my favorite things that we've been doing recently.
What's like the first deck that got you into CDH? Like what was your first one? You're like, all right, this is it. This is gonna be good.
Oh, I know the first one that I built myself was First Chain Food Sliver. Did I say it right?
No.
Food Chain First Sliver. I got it right that time. Okay,
Yeah,
that was the deck that I first built, because I had played a Prosh casual deck that had played Food Chain in it, and loved when like I would accidentally find infinite combos that I didn't really even know were in the deck. So I kind of wanted to build in that direction. So that was the first thing I did, was played a proxy-less First Chain Food Sliver deck. Did I do it right?
I think so.
Food Chain First Sliver.
God damn it. Oh my god. All right, I'm going to get it one of these.
No, but honestly, sorry, we'll get right into that. I love that you don't cut that shit out, because I do the same thing all the time. Half the time I can't read, like I'm really bad at pronouncing stuff. And so whenever Cam gets something wrong, I'm like, okay, I'm not alone. And like that's really relatable. So I appreciate that.
They should make it really easy to pronounce the cards. Like I want next to the title of the cards, I want the pronunciation guide, because
I think they do release one, but it's like on the internet. You have to
I'm not Googling shit. I can't be bothered to do that. I already have to Google the abilities on all my cards. I don't have to add that as something else.
I'm that person. I'm the what does this mean on a menu person, and I Google that too. Yeah. So yeah, what was your first?
For me, it was Tassiger was the first one, and I had a Tassiger deck that really wasn't a CDH deck, but it had Seedborn Muse in it, and then I kind of realized that it was super powerful, so I looked online to see how to make it even more powerful. Eventually, it turned into Timna Thrasios, I think, and I played that for a while, and then got to Nagila after that, but kind of went through that route, through just kind of like blue-black base decks, kind of right from the beginning.
My first CDH deck, it was Quark Sakashima.
Mm-hmm.
What a doozy of a deck.
It's on your channel.
I remember
yeah.
that.
I remember this too, yeah.
You guys invited me on the channel, and I was like, shit, I've never played CDH before. And I was like, I know that Ken does, and he plays this like deck with Quark that it seems to be funny, so I'll just like hit him up for it. And then I was like, oh my god.
And what else did you do to the deck?
I put a Force of Will in it that I shouldn't have. That
It
was very
titty.
explicit, and it should not have been on the channel.
It was on our channel?
I don't think I cast it for a reason, because I was like, I don't want to.
It was like
I don't know if I remember that.
They're in
anime
swimsuits, and there's
titties.
a water bottle that they're holding between. Yeah, I went on like, I don't know,
Some proxy thing.
I was like, well, I'm gonna try to order proxies that look like proxies. That way, like, you know, no one's gonna be like mad that they're proxies if I ever encounter that in real life. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm tutoring for, because I don't know what any of these cards are, because they don't have the artwork of the actual.
I know. I
Such a
recognize
mess.
cards so much by their artwork more than anything else.
Yeah, so I was like, oh no, never again.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first deck.
Yeah.
What was yours, Lou?
Winota, we know this. I was also the first deck I played on your channel, and it took me a long time to win with it, which was really cool. But yeah, that was the first one. And I think what's so fun about CDH is like you were talking about the brews, but there's so many different things you can do. Like it doesn't ever have to be just one type of meta. And with every set, I feel like people are immediately like, okay, what's the legendary creature? What's the new combo? Like, what are we gonna do for that? And you make a lot of content like that too. So I'd love to talk a little bit about like your channel, the progression, kind of like you talked a little bit about how you got started, but how does like the average day at the Play to Win headquarters go?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You just went full time, which was really cool too. Both of you.
Full time for over a year
and a half now. Yeah.
And then I've been full time for at this point like 7 months, something like that, since January-ish. For me, Monday, I spend all day editing. Tuesday, I spend all day editing.
I should say that's the same for me, too.
Yeah.
It's a lot of editing those first 2 days.
Wednesday, we do our narration for the video that I've been editing this week that goes up on Sunday. So, like, whatever's coming out on Sunday, I started it, like, the Monday prior. Wednesday, we do the narration. Then I cut the narration and I put it in. What do you do on Wednesday?
Wednesday, I'm putting the shorts together for the podcast that I edited on Monday and Tuesday.
Yep. And then Thursday, I try to have the shorts done for the video for the following week, but I often don't get them done in time. Like for this week example, I don't have any of the shorts done for this coming week. I should have them done last Thursday, but because shit just comes up all the time, and there's like so many small things when running the channel that you don't really realize, just like answering messages and answering emails, and there's a lot of little stuff like that ends up taking up a lot of time.
And it's surprising how long it can take to do things that sound very simple too.
Right, yeah, to just like, yeah, exactly. So I try to have that done on Thursday, and then Friday we'll record sometimes if we can on Friday, one of the games, but a lot of times recordings happen on Saturday and Sunday because for a lot of guests, there's only one guest and we'll need a third person. So it'll be like Tyler or Nate or Brandon, which are other people, but they, not right now, but they'll usually have jobs during the day. So we have to like do stuff on the weekends too.
Yeah, and then there's other, like Thursday and Friday for me, we're always doing the podcast on Fridays usually, so that's something else that we'll do. And then the Thursdays for me, I'm still editing like the final short that I have to do, and then I'm also doing a lot of various different things. Like I'm the one that proxies all of the decks that we play on the channel, so if there's a deck to proxy, there's that. Sometimes
you talk to sponsors and stuff too?
Yeah, so I'll handle a lot of that messages too. And then we each also do different Patreon extra content videos too. Dylan's in charge of the weekly Chill to Win episodes now, and then I handle this weekly series called Only Cams where, no, it's not weekly, it's monthly. Monthly, yeah, but I'll do like arena drafts for fun because it's just me. I can't play Commander all by myself, so I'll do stuff like that. So,
and then I do an update video once a month too that I just like let everyone know what we have going on behind the scenes. We do a monthly Zoom meetup for all of our $50 and up patron meetings for an hour. We just chat with patrons. We do one-on-ones with all of our $100 patrons kind of throughout the month. On the first Sunday of every month, we play Magic on our Discord with patrons just for like 4 or 5 hours. We'll just kind of like hop on and get a whole bunch of games with Discord people, which is great.
And that's basically our schedule.
And that's it.
Like on a monthly basis and weekly basis.
When do you sleep?
Yeah, so going full-time was super helpful for that because before this, when I had a full-time job, doing all that shit is obviously extremely difficult, right? So like I really didn't have a life for the past like 3.5 years. I guess like this year I've had a life again, but before that for like 3 or 4 years, I kind of just like didn't have a life, which was super easy during the pandemic. But then after that it became much more difficult. And over time it was just too much of like spending like roughly at the time, probably like between counting like recording and stuff, 45 to 55 hours a week on Play to Win, and then also working 40 hours a week at my job was too much. So now I'm kind of down to just working like that 45 hours a week on Play to Win stuff. And realistically, it probably is a little bit more than that, but it's not really because like I'm playing Magic. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of work, but it's like fun and cool. And
yeah,
good. So
like our Fridays are we play games, we record a podcast. Like that doesn't feel
it's
like
not,
work a lot of the time.
So it is a lot of action and a lot of stuff, but it's fun, rewarding stuff too. Yeah.
So very similar. Tori and I both have like our own jobs too. Like during the day, Tori has her own job. I am technically a full-time content creator, but I'm not like full-time Scribabies because it's just not at the point where that works, right? But we thankfully have an editor because if we didn't, I don't know how we would manage anything. But yeah, Tori does like all the bookkeeping. Tori does all of the art for the channel, thumbnails. You also do the mailing of our Patreon orders right now. What else do you do that I'm not thinking off the top of my head?
A lot of my day-to-day usually goes to the financing. Like I'm always looking at our spreadsheets, mostly financing for budgeting, just trying to see like where we can allocate funds to go to all the MagicCons or all the events. Cause you know, a lot of people think that these events that have creators there, like they're like, oh, they're sponsoring them to be there. They're not paid. A lot of these aren't paid. So I try to allocate funds from our sponsorships or Patreon to get us to A to B, and try to figure out like anything we need like on backup to reserve for if our cameras break or if, you know, the computer craps the bed and it's gone or my iPad breaks and now I don't have something to do art with.
This all happened.
Stuff like this. Like I just constantly am like working on those numbers. And then I also spend a lot of time doing art, doing the thumbnails. I have never used Photoshop in my life. And trying to learn that this year has been a very big hurdle. It is very confusing.
Yeah,
very
I use
confusing.
Canva, which is super
Yeah.
easy mode.
Yeah, I use Canva a lot, but I've been learning how to use Photoshop
Yeah.
for like YouTube and other stuff, and that's been taking up a lot of my time now because I'm just like, how do you lasso an image? Just like I use an iPad when I draw, so I just like boop 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 done, and I'm like, what the fuck? I can't figure it out. I'm like, it's a mess.
Yeah.
Much like Magic, Photoshop is similar in that the layers are extremely confusing to me.
Oh,
I feel like that was good, right?
That
The Photoshop layers, it always trips me up when I try. They don't make sense.
They don't
yeah.
make sense. As far as the whole creative thing goes, I know that sometimes just on like the art side, I can struggle with finding like creativity or like, motivation to get just a drawing done. But how do you both where do you both source a lot of your inspiration and motivation for either, your content in general or your decks or like the drive to keep doing what you're doing?
There's a lot that goes into it. I think a lot of it comes from what we're currently doing in our own like CEDH lifestyles outside of the channel too. Like I'm constantly like for the podcast, constantly drawing in like what we're doing in the community, trying to get some ideas from that. We love talking about like the events that we've been to, doing like tournament recaps and stuff like that. So making sure that we're just like continuously interacting with the community and finding what is connecting to me, whether it's like a new deck that I'm enjoying or trying to find like a specific card or even something that's going on in the community too, right? I'm just trying to look for the community and what's going on there and what can call to me specifically.
Yeah, kind of just like lean into what we're super interested at the time. Like we're normally almost always into some aspect of Magic, but sometimes it's different stuff. With the gameplay, it's kind of easy because I just look for creators that I like and enjoy their work, and I ask them to come on the show, or they ask if they can be on the show. That's normally how that works. But for podcasts, I feel like we're looking for topics, and normally that can just be like, do you have a deck that you're working on? If so, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. If we should talk about the bands, because a lot of people are talking about bands again, let's just talk about that. Kind of just like following whatever you want to follow. I think sometimes, and I'm like, what we do isn't like the most creative thing in the world compared to like, I don't draw anything. Like I don't have any talent like that, but it's it's a different, you just got to follow what you want to do, which is, it's easier said than done, right? Like, but just like wherever you want to be creative, just like, I just try to like follow that path, I guess.
Yeah, which is why like I don't have like a laundry list of podcasts that we're going to go over, and I don't have them all planned out. A lot of times it's like week to week because I don't really know what I want to talk about in that week. It's just more like, well, this is kind of how I feel, and this is like a card, a deck, anything that I feel very strongly about, and that's why I want to talk about this.
Sorry, I just want to add what I actually do for the channel because I feel like that made it seem like I did nothing. So I write most of the podcast stuff out. I also I title like all of our shorts and organize those, and sometimes we'll give timestamps too. I do all of like most of the marketing. We do social media together because there's just too much social media to do that right now. I also do a lot of the scouting and planning for our shoots and events. So I find like the weekends that work the best, finding which guests we want. We each every year will be like, okay, who's our top 5 guests, dream guests that like a goal for us? Like who do we want to get this year?
That's what I do too.
So we make sure we like align that way too. And then I do a lot of other stuff that I can't think of now. I was just like, oh my God, it looks like I sound like.
You do a lot of really good community outreach.
Yeah.
I think one of your
Sponsors,
strongest
too.
skills is you're so good at speaking to not even just sponsors, just speaking to people in general and making people feel like, heard, understood, and gathering all of like the community feedback.
Thanks, bestie.
You do. And that's the thing too. I'm like, thank God, because like you reaching out to guests and people on the show or just, even our sponsors, you're always very like someone people want to work with. Not that nobody wants to work with me, but I talk like a corporate email. Like I literally I'll read my emails back with people and be like, good afternoon. Hope this finds you well. I hope the weekend was pleasant. And I'm like, who the f wants to play Magic with me? I sound like a 50-year-old
Mine has like
finance.
one smiley face. Like, why'd I do that? And Tori's is like the best professional email.
No.
So I think that what's nice about doing this is like we both have each other, like we could balance each other, which is what you guys have too, right? Like it's not just one person overwhelmed, stressed. Like there's definitely weeks where I'm like, hey, I'm super busy, I can't do this thing, can you do it? Or vice versa. Or like Tori's about to go on vacation, so I know I have to do extra like work behind the scenes, right? And it's nice to know that you're not by yourself. I'm like editing by yourself would probably drive me nuts, but I'm glad that you guys have like a good balance for that. Yeah. So I'd love to know, how do you just kind of turn off your creator brain? Because something I've struggled with, like I've been doing content full time since 2019. Yeah. And even, or actually before 2017. even with that, it's really hard to not just be like, ooh, I should do something, or ooh, I have an idea, let me write it down, ooh, let me do this, right? How do you just like turn that off and like make a degree of separation?
Oh, that's our secret. I don't think it turns off. Yeah, I don't think it turns off.
It's always on. That's part of like I'm always kind of working, but with the work I'm doing, it doesn't feel like work. So it's always kind of on. It's always in the background. Yeah. So and I'm not sure if that's the best thing, but that's the answer. Is that it's always I'm always thinking about shit.
The only difference for me is that there are like other games that I play too.
Also want to shout out Cyrus from Mental Misplay, because Cyrus edits some of our videos sometimes, and also Cubby, another friend of mine who does edit some of our videos, where they will both edit kind of like the first pass of like the cutting down of the video, and then when we do the narration, I will put the narration over top of that, and having them help on certain videos can be a huge help.
With that too, like I was gonna ask, do you guys just like find like the cuts and like what you want to say before, like, or like kind of be like, ooh, we should talk about this? Like, how does that go?
Yeah. So first thing I do after I import the footage is I cut everything down as small as possible. So any any like pause and silence, all of that gets cut out, and I put music underneath of it. And I put like the card images and the live totals over top of that, hopefully. And then once that's all together, like the completed video edited game with no pauses or anything in it, then we'll come in and we'll narrate it. So we'll just kind of watch it and do like a review, basically. And as we're watching it for the first time, we'll just pause it whenever we have something to say. We'll just interject and say it. And then after that, I'll take those narrations and I'll cut it and put that into the video. So we basically, like, it goes through 2 passes, basically. What about for the You do the podcast?
Yeah, it's pretty similar for the podcast on my first pass through, where I am doing 2. The first one is just going through, again, just cutting up, going back and forth between me, Dylan, and sometimes Tyler, cutting out all the ums and uhs and just trying to make everything look right for the actual cut of the podcast. Then I'll go through a second time and I'll start to do all of the actual like video formatting, put in all of the card images so that way that can change as we're talking about different stuff. So it's a little bit less involved than the gameplay because I don't have life totals to keep track of, and I don't have like card images to put on a stack specifically, but
yours is like way longer.
It's
like
significantly longer.
So like if we talk for like an hour and 15 minutes, you probably keep like an hour of that or more.
A solid, normally I'm cutting 10 minutes of footage out of everything that we record. So if it's an hour 15, that's about an hour and 5 podcasts we have there.
And for me, it's like almost the opposite. Like if we play a game for an hour, I'll normally cut that down to be less than 10 minutes normally. It depends on what type of games, but if it's about that much.
The CEDH games go quick sometimes. Like we just had one that was like 12 minutes. People were like, you couldn't play again. And I was like, when we played, it was like 45, 50 minutes, but we cut out all the fluff because that was like not necessary. So now it's 12 minutes. Like that is just what happens sometimes with
Right. And especially if there's like stacks pieces involved, an hour and a half game, really, like most of it's thinking, is people's just like
we're
stopping
literally,
and thinking, right?
Yeah, our brains are like sitting here, we're like, or oh shit, that's a stacks piece. We can't do things that way. Like it's a lot of just.
Or we're politicking about a card and then realizing that we were wrong about how the card works the whole time. Well, I don't want to include a 20-minute conversation that ultimately did nothing in the video.
I just wanted to ask, because it's silly, where did Begin come from for you guys?
That's a great question. You know, when we were doing the first episode, we had a completely different idea for how it would look.
Originally, it was supposed to be much more like a sportscaster. Like we would like be like live with the game, saying like, and Dylan played a forest, and then he tapped for Orlando World. It was supposed to be live, but as we were watching, we were like, I don't know what to say during most of this shit. Like it's like the voices are like carry the story enough, and then I think we just like I have remembered this. Like we need something that's just like to start the thing off. I don't know why we landed on Begin.
Yeah, but it was just like, well, what if this is just what starts it? I feel like it was just that. What if we just say Begin?
I think normally a lot of our like. We'll talk about like how do we include us talking about this particular thing, and then us having that conversation is what we include to talk about it. So we were just like, how do we start this off? Begin. I don't know. There's not really like an interesting story to it.
It's just fun. I like it.
I thought it was some like Mortal Kombat type thing.
It was supposed to have that vibe, I think. Yeah. But why that word specifically, I'm not sure. When we first started playing with Power was also very big and popular, and I feel like their videos were kind of structured like a fight game. So I feel like that like the epic music, that kind of like that inspiration comes from them. And then like there's like certain other aspects of Play to Win that like came from other channels like CEDH TV. I've always been a big fan of Mon's and the way that he kind of cuts everything out and just like puts the game out. Like there was a little bit of borrowed from there too. So I think it kind of came from that like fighting game Mortal Kombat style.
While also still wanting to be just like a little bit different too, and not just like do the same kind of narration at the same time.
But it's so personable, and I love it because you guys will be like, we fucked up, or like this thing happened, or like, oh my god, this thing's so crazy, and I love the cuts to it. It's done so clean and it's so unique. Like obviously, like game nights will cut and talk about the game, right?
Right.
And they do something similar, but it's just still very different.
Right, like that's where we got that part of it too. Is like the game nights is like chipping in like a reality TV show is kind of interesting, but we don't have like a big studio or anything like that, so we can't set it up quite like that. And yeah, I don't know.
I like the abrupt style of it too.
Yeah.
It's not just like, you're still looking at the board and then you're still seeing like someone else talk about it on top of it. I'm not trying to diss what they do. Obviously they're,
Right.
amazing at what they do.
yeah.
But like I just kind of like, I also like our style where it's just quick cut. Nope, I have a quick thing to say about what's happening here, and then we're just gonna go right back to it immediately.
And the mistakes is like that's like the most relatable Magic player thing ever. Is like we all fuck up so much because the game is so impossibly difficult. Like, yeah.
It's also great too because it fields out the question that someone might be hanging on to. Because sometimes, like, you'll watch a game and be like, wait a minute, where did they get the mana to cast that? That's wrong. And then instead of like enjoying the rest of the game, you're hung up on that one instance.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get comments because, like, like we said, it's a hard game and we're doing it for hours. And it's like you make a little mistake and someone will be like, you didn't tap this to pay this. You actually didn't have the color. It's like so much nicer when you can go like, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, about that. And it's like, let me make fun of me first so you can.
So that
Exactly.
you can,
Exactly. Yeah. Nothing you can say I haven't said to myself already.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we noticed that you have your own tournaments going on up in the game stores by you. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what's going on with that?
Sure, yeah. We do like quarterly CEDH tournaments. They're at the Stroud Mall in Pennsylvania through our game store, Cloud City Games. They have 3 different locations, but that particular location can hold 96 people, which is how many people we have come for the tournament. Aaron, the owner, has been like a really good friend of mine for a long time. He actually is like, weirdly enough, he's like exactly 10 years older than me. He's vegan. He was into hardcore. He's like the 10-year future version of me. He's a great guy. So he owns Cloud. So we do the events quarterly, and they're great. We give like first crack to our patrons so they can get in first. And actually, before the first crack to our patrons, we also give it to the local Discord on the Cloud end of things, so they can get like local players to kind of get a first crack to get in there as well. And so far, they've been going really great.
Yeah, they've been a blast. They're single-day tournaments. You do 5 rounds, and then we cut to top 16. And then we've been doing day 2 events, too, where we can just, like, set up single pods, too, where you can buy in and then win the in-store credit, the amount that we all put in. So they make for some great days, too.
Yeah, like, I think for a couple people, we're kind of far for them. People were traveling, like, 5-10 hours to come play with us. But then to do that just for one-day tournament can kind of feel lame. But if you can make it into like a weekend thing where like you stay overnight somewhere, you come back on Sunday, we play more personal games and can chat more quietly when there's less people. I think that's like a big appeal to a lot of people. And then it's not as much of just like, driving 10 hours for one day thing and then driving right back.
Well, we do that with the Scrybaby Summerfest. It's not like a tournament, but we've been like just curating with them, with the Bearded Dragon, just like an event for people to like come play. And like, yeah, they get to meet us, but it's also just like a community event, which like you guys are so big on community too. We talked about that earlier, which I think your tournament, like, yes, it's a tournament, but it still also feels like that. Like, every picture you see, everybody's, like, all excited and happy. And it's not just like, all right, we're out here playing games. Like, it's a very community-focused thing. Was this something you pitched to them, or did they ask you about doing this, too?
I think, how did it start?
I think they came to us. I think Aaron came to us originally, like, well before they had even opened their location in Strouds. And we had a couple of ideas going back and forth.
Because the first one we did was, like, 30 people at the Lehigh Valley Mall.
Yeah.
It got bigger.
Yeah, and then we had moved into, once they got their Easton location, that could hold 64 people for a tournament. So we tested some more waters with that. And then once they opened their Strasbourg location, it just kind of kept growing.
Oh my gosh, that's like most of my questions, but you guys are just like so incredible to listen to about how you got started and where you're at now. And I'm really excited to see everything you do next year between just like contents and tournaments and things. Do you guys have any like future goals that you've set for yourself? Because I'm not like I'm weird in the like, I'm not a 5-year plan person, whatever it is. I'm like a 3-month person. Or next year, like maybe next year we release more videos or we do the podcast more often, right? Because we're still bi-weekly. Like we just don't have the time, the money, or energy to do that right now. So what are some like goals for you guys?
I have a ton of goals. We have a lot of goals.
Yeah, we're constantly talking about stuff that we would love to happen, and we just don't have the resources to do quite yet.
I write down all the time. Yeah, but I think right now our goal for the 4th quarter of this year is to actually remove something. Because at the beginning of this year, I'm like, this is the first year we're both going full time. We're going to push a lot, but like we don't want to drive ourselves crazy with something. So like by like the last quarter, let's try to like take something off of the list and then maybe replace it with something else in January. But we got to take something off. So right now we want to remove something. I don't know what that is yet.
I don't know what that is either, because I'm pretty happy
Yeah.
with our current go-around of
Right.
content right now, so I'm not sure what that will be.
Yeah, so maybe we won't do that, but I have been wanting to do a couple more short content that was made specifically for shorts, talking about a specific card, talking about test hands or something like that. I have some ideas for stuff like that because right now all of our shorts are just kind of like chopped up versions of our main videos.
Do you think those are like for play to win, or you think that's for your individual channels too? Or are you like, this is all for play to win?
I think all for play to win. If
Yeah.
it's Magic, it's play to win.
I think
yeah.
so. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think so too. I know I want to make the Only Cam series a weekly thing at some point too. I know we've talked about also doing like a sports kind of news show where like they have the clock going ticking down. You only have 2 minutes to talk about a specific topic, and we just yell all the time. Like I would love to do something like that too.
Yeah.
I think right now the only thing standing in our way from any of these goals is just kind of the time thing.
Yeah.
Editing is a very time-consuming thing, but it is something that I don't know. I kind of enjoy. I like going back and re-listening to some of the stuff we say. Make sure that we say, smart things, and
cut out some of the dumb things.
some
believe
of
it or
the
not.
things. I
We
try to
include some.
Yeah, I try to leave in as much dumbness that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like when you do kind of outside the box stuff too, because like I watched the Jeopardy video you guys did, and that was fucking hysterical.
I would love to do.
I would
more
love
stuff
to do
yeah.
like
more
that,
stuff
yeah.
like that, just like game show stuff.
Yeah,
Magic.
because there's so much fun to do. There's so
Yeah.
much fun to put together.
Yeah, we've talked about doing like a drunk history episode kind of thing, and we're like, what's everything that came out this year for Magic? Because I couldn't tell you, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that too. And I think it's nice to see because it's really hard. We get a lot of people in our community who are like, we'd love to see your everyday life or something else. And I'm like, well, if we put that on there, YouTube's going to tank that and it's not going to work out. So
Yeah.
like, how can we show our more, like you have a lot of personality in your channel, right? But like, how can we show it more? So I think things like that,
Yeah.
where it's like side quest videos, but still in the realm of Magic is really fun. And I enjoy that too.
Yeah. I think getting more editor work so we can have more time to do some of that stuff is a big goal.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're kind of, like you said, controlling over it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It's like our child.
I
Yeah.
do like that you said you want to take some stuff off your plate, which I think is really good because a lot of creators will just keep going until they're like burnt out and like reach that point where it's not okay. And like for me, it's the most important that like we both have spoons. Like if it's ever like too much, I don't ever want it to be like, well, we have to do this thing or it's not fun anymore or it's exhausting. So I think recognizing taking stuff back, we've done with our Patreon a few times. We changed tiers. We figured out what works.
And people know when you're not having a good time anymore. They can sense that. They can feel that. There's no reason to hide it. Just don't do that thing, right?
When I went full time, a big thing that I wanted to make sure that I was doing was like focusing on the mental health side of things, because from taking in a lot of content, you hear stories about what it can be like being a content creator, and I wanted to make sure that whatever I'm doing now, whatever he was going to eventually doing, wasn't going to burn us out immediately. So making sure that like I need to get all my work done for the day, but I also have like a solid time where I'm not working to 11 o'clock every night where I need to, right? And just keeping an eye on that kind of stuff. I know when you go in full time, you get a lot more time on your plate where you're able to kind of like set more reasonable boundaries for
Yes,
yourself. And that's
so
always
important.
something that I've been trying to make sure that we're doing is don't do anything that's going to force us to burn out.
Yeah. And like almost like scheduling things so that we cannot work, right? So like, and this one is probably not the best example because we also started doing a weekly local CDH night at our other Cloud City local game store, where at the Palmer Mall we play at 6. Oh no, on Tuesdays now. It was Wednesdays, moving it to Tuesdays. But we were doing that to like, I wanted to make sure that we like get actually a chance to like play more Magic. We were going to Modern for a little bit. The reason I say it's bad is because it's just more Magic. It's kind of more the same thing. But scheduling things that's not work is super important because I'll just work forever. Like if there's nothing else to do and I'm bored, I'll just go upstairs and work. So like scheduling to make me not do that, I think is important.
We do that with each other too. We're like, okay, like if we sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, we try to like do something that's just us as friends.
Yeah.
That's not work. So it's like we're going to the movies or we're getting dinner, or we're having girl dinner, or we're doing whatever, just to like make sure that we're nurturing our friendships, because doing a
Gotta be a
channel,
priority.
yeah, it's not easy to do a channel with just anybody. Like you have to have the right person. We're very fortunate that we are the right people for each other. I think it's probably the same for you guys too.
Yeah, it wouldn't be possible without either of us.
Right.
Like,
For sure.
yeah,
For
yeah.
sure. And like I think recognizing that and being a good support system for your business partner is like so important, but also like our partners in life, like Steven, you've been really great about that. Your girlfriends are very supportive. Your families are really supportive. Like all these things are so nice to have like people to fill your cup, or vice versa, right? So I feel very fortunate, and it's really cool seeing all the support you guys have with each other, but also with the people around you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
I
been
do
great.
feel very fortunate too.
That's a very positive note. Wow, I love that.
And cut.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all the questions I have. Is there anything you guys want to plug or like talk about?
I have no plugs.
Plugs. Thanks for having us. This was great. Love talking to you guys. Love playing Magic. This is wonderful.
Well, I'll plug some stuff for you. They have a very cool Patreon. They have a very cool bonfire. They have a super cool Discord that I recommend if you're looking to game online. Definitely check them out. We'll have some info for Play to Win in the description down below. And thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a thumbs up or a good review. Helps us out. And it's free. Costs you nothing. So do that. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.